I made 1.1 million in the last 10 months almost on autopilot with this dropshipping store, and I did so whilst working 3 hours per week. And the way I build dropshipping stores is the complete opposite of what most people teach. I don't spend my time testing 5 products per day. I'm not building new stores every single week because my winning product died out. And I'm not making any ad creatives either. Instead, I build boring niche stores that are powered by Google Ads and are designed to run almost automatically, which is the whole point of dropshipping, to build an online business that is detached from your time, that runs 24/7, 365, that can generate you consistent cash flow and profits. And these boring niche stores are actually valuable assets, the type that you can go on to sell, just like I did my first Google Ads dropshipping store back in December of 2022. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how this model works. You'll see how to build an online business that is actually detached from your time, that generates you consistent cash flow and profit without falling into the 12-hour daily trap of the typical modern day dropshipper. Because if your goal is freedom, time freedom, location freedom, and/or financial freedom, then the last thing you want is to build a business that traps you behind your laptop 12 hours a day. So let me break down the model that changed everything for me. So here we can see the store that I launched 10 months ago back in May of 2025, which has done a total of $1.1 million in revenue, which is one of the distinct differences of the strategy that we're going to break down today. Now, one thing that should stand out to you is the average order value. So you can see mine is $388, which is very different to the typical dropshipper that tends to sell $30 to $50 products, and most of the time it's low ticket, low quality junk. So why do they do it? Why do so many people that want to start dropshipping sell low ticket, low quality products that are $30 or $50 in value? They end up testing 5 different products a day, launching new stores over and over again, hoping for a different outcome, only to get burnt out by working 12-hour days and yet still making barely any profit, let alone revenue. I'll tell you why. It's because most people in the industry are still teaching these old, outdated methods that may have worked back in 2020, 2021, but they certainly don't work today in 2026. Instead, I'm going to be sharing with you a system that doesn't require that you test different products, create multiple stores, and work 12-hour days creating loads of different creatives, which will allow you to build an asset that generates you consistent cash flow 24/7, 365. And the main driver of revenue for this business will be Google Ads, which will allow us to almost fully automate the process. Let me explain why. Let me show you an example of what a Google ad looks like. So let's type in the name of a random product. Let's go with a smart door lock. On Google, we have 2 different types of ads. We have this ad here, which you can see indicated by a sponsored listing, which is on the Google search results. This is typically just a text-based ad with a headline and then a description below. But as you can see, it's also possible to add images to these ads too. Not only that, but you can add sublinks to other relevant landing pages on your website as well. So here we can see one advertiser taking up almost the entire digital real estate that's actually available for this particular product on the Google search results. We then see another ad below from a different competitor, which is also a search text ad. So gone are the days of you being able to generate organic traffic from SEO, because you can see search results are almost 100% dominated by Google Ads now. If you scroll down far enough beneath the AI overview, you will finally get to an organic listing. But then what do we have here on the right hand side? More sponsored listings. Now these are examples of Google shopping ads. So as you can see, it's a product image, a title, and a price point. And those are all of the elements that are required to create a high converting Google ad. Just text on the search network, or text plus image plus price point on the shopping network. So aside from a product image, you do not need to spend any time creating new creatives and constantly testing, which is the trap that most dropshippers fall into when trying to generate sales using meta ads. But let's take this one step further. Let's think about what we've actually just done here, right? Google is a search engine. So we've gone to Google and typed in the name of a product that we're interested in purchasing as a potential customer, which means customers that are searching for this particular product or other products already know what they're looking for. It's a much higher intent audience than what you would otherwise have on Meta. Think about it. When someone's on their phone doom scrolling on Instagram or Facebook, you have a very difficult job to do as an advertiser. You need to take them from doom scrolling to then landing on your website and have an ad that is compelling enough that's first going to allow them to click through and go to your website, and then past that point actually go on to purchase the product. So your ad, your creative, and your ability as an advertiser needs to be a pretty good standard to be able to take someone from doom scrolling to purchasing, which is why most people that advertise on Meta end up selling low ticket products that are $30 or $50 in value. But as you saw with my store in the example earlier, I'm selling products 10 times that amount at $388 as my average order value. Not only that, but because I'm using Google Ads, customers are coming to me and typing in the name of the product that I'm selling. The other thing that's worth mentioning is these people that are advertising on Google, they've not spent anything to show this ad to me, which may come as a shock, but the way Google bills is completely different to Meta. On Meta, you pay per view. You're charged based on your CPM, your cost per 1,000 views. Whereas on Google, you only paid when someone physically clicks on your ad. So this advertiser would only get billed if I actually click on the ad. They've not paid anything yet to actually get the placement, which is why Google's also known as PPC advertising, pay per click. So as Google advertisers, not only are you able to target a higher intent audience, and you're only billed if someone actually clicks on the ad. Because of that, typically your ad costs are significantly lower than what you would otherwise pay on Meta, which is why Google advertising stores have higher net profit margins than Meta dropshipping stores. On Meta, it's not uncommon to have a 10, 15, or maybe 20% net profit margin at best. Whereas on my store, I have a 44% net profit margin, and many of my students are typically within the 30 to 50% net profit margin range, because they're selling high ticket products that are at least $100 in value to customers that are already actively searching for them on Google, and they only pay when someone physically clicks on their ad, which means their advertising costs are significantly lower than what they would otherwise pay if they were trying to advertise on Meta. Now, the reason this is so important is because that means you, as an advertiser, keep more of the profit that you generate per sale, because your advertising costs are lower. Not only that, but because the process is so simple, you only need a product title, product image, and price point. It's very easy to delegate this process. You can have a virtual assistant simply build the product pages for you and list them for you on Google, and you're good to go. It's not like on Meta where you need a creative strategist, video editor, image editor, someone to create the copy, and then someone to actually launch the ads. Or, worst case scenario, you're doing all of that yourself, which is why you're stuck working 12-hour days. No, Google is much simpler. You can simply have a virtual assistant, build a few SOPs and processes for them to follow, and you're good to go. There's a military saying called KISS, which means keep it simple, stupid. This is something that I like to apply to business, and actually anything in life, because as humans, we have a tendency to overcomplicate things. But when we keep things simple, or simple stupid, it allows us to scale. Simple scales. Why? Because it provides you with clarity. Clarity allows you to move forward with confidence, and confidence allows you to build systems for team members to follow, which means you can automate and delegate your business and build a business that allows you to work just 3 hours a week and generates consistent cash flow and profit 24/7, 365. Keeping a business simple is also going to give it what? Exit potential. It's going to be much more appealing to a prospective buyer if it's a simple business that operates consistently. Here's why. What do you think is more appealing to a prospective buyer of a business? A business with a strong foundation where a new founder can come in and there are systems that have already been built, allowing most of the operations and the processes to be automated and delegated, meaning that they only need to work 3 hours per week. Or a business that's chaotic, the founder's still working 12-hour days, having to iterate ad creatives every single day, every single week to just keep on top of the Meta ad updates, has no personal time and is still barely breaking even because Meta ads are eating up all of their profits. If you're still not sure, I can tell you it's this business that's going to be the one that the prospective buyer wants to buy and is actually ultimately going to be worth more. And I can tell you that there's truth to this because I actually exited my first Google Ads dropshipping store back in December of 2022. I sold the business to a prospective buyer. They were an e-commerce group and owned maybe like 4 or 5 different businesses in their portfolio. They were looking to acquire another online business, and this was their first dropshipping business. All of their existing businesses were holding physical products in stock and leveraging Meta ads as opposed to Google. When I was introduced to the buyer, we hopped on a call. They wanted to understand more about the business, how it was built, the profit and loss, and of course the systems that had been implemented, because they wanted to know what duties they would need to fulfill on. They were quite surprised when I showed them that the majority of the business had been automated using tools such as Zapier, and anything that wasn't automated was basically fulfilled by my virtual assistant. The only thing I was actively doing was managing the Google ad campaigns. Now, funny story, that prospective buyer was so impressed with the way I'd been able to automate that business and what I was doing inside of the Google advertising account to generate consistent results with an incredibly high net profit margin for most e-commerce businesses. They actually went on to employ me after I'd sold them the business. So for 8 months, I continued to manage the Google ad account for the business that I'd just sold to them for a lump sum. Just for context, the brand was in the baby niche and I was selling prams, pushchairs, car seats, travel system to customers all over the UK. And I was doing so only with Google Ads. Here's why. Let's think about the sales funnel. Now, if you don't know what this is, don't worry. I'm going to break it down for you now. This is essentially replicating the customer journey. Down here is your store where they're going to make a purchase. And in the sales funnel, we have 3 layers. We have the top of funnel where customers are coldest. We have middle of funnel where customers are warming up. And we have the bottom of funnel where customers are the hottest and closest to conversion, which is ultimately where we're trying to get them to. Now, as I explained earlier, Google is a search engine, which means customers are coming to us. The big benefit we have there is we're able to target people who are at the bottom of the funnel. They're already typing in the name of the products that we're selling, which means as advertisers, we have a pretty easy job at getting them over the line because they're already here. They just need one little touch to push them to conversion. And normally a simple ad on the shopping and or the search network is enough to do that. A bit like the smart door lock example that we looked at earlier, which is very different to meta ads where they're mostly targeting customers that are here, okay? Very cold. Like I mentioned, you've got a pretty difficult job there as an advertiser, especially if you're someone that doesn't have a lot of experience or skill to get a customer from the top of the funnel all the way down to the bottom of the funnel and get them to convert, which is why most people on Meta sell low ticket, low quality junk that is $30 to $50 in value. But yet on Google, I'm able to sell products with an average order value of $388, whilst in most cases spending less than what people are spending on Meta to generate sales at $30 to $50, which is why most people on Meta have a 10 to 20% net profit margin. Yet on Google, we're able to get a 30 to 50% net profit margin by simply selling products to customers on Google that are already actively searching for the products that we sell. So that brings us on to the next point, which is how you can identify products and validate them using existing data that's available for free on Google. And I'm going to show you how right now. Now, what I'm going to summarize for you here is my 4-step product validation method. Now, I'm going to summarize the process and how it works in principle. However, if you want a 20-minute long in-depth training video for free, then see the link in the video description. I break down my exact process for the 4-step product validation method, and I do a walkthrough step-by-step guide so that you can actually use this to validate your own winning products and bring them to market with an incredibly high success rate. I host this video inside of my free Google Ads dropshipping group. It's completely free to join. Just see the link in the video description and you can gain access to that training. So what is the 4-step product validation method? Well, we need to find products that have high search demand. Then we're going to look for low competition. Then we're going to make sure these products are evergreen, which means they can be sold year round. And lastly, we want to make sure that there is a high profit potential. So we validate search demand using a tool called Google Keyword Planner. It's a free tool. To access it, all you need is an existing Google advertising account. To measure competition, we're going to use a combination of Google Keyword Planner and Google Shopping. Google Keyword Planner will give you an estimated cost per click value. So it tells you what you could expect to pay to win a click on your ad. The reason I say win is because Google Ads is an auction. You're competing against other people in order to win that click. Just like this, for example. So this person here has told Google they're willing to pay more for this click so that they can get the first position result. Closely followed by this person, then that person. You get the idea. Now, telling Google that you're willing to pay more doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the click, but it just gives you more visibility, and typically more views will equal more clicks. The reason that it's important to calculate your estimated cost per click is we can then work backwards and determine how much we might have to pay in order to generate a sale. And I'll show you how to do this in just a moment. To do this, we use a tool called Google Trends. We want to make sure that we're selling products that can generate consistent sales year round. And more often than not, these are just boring products like smart door locks that no other dropshipper is thinking about. Lastly, we want to make sure that we have a high profit potential. We do this by simply calculating the cost of goods sold, which is why it's also important for us to determine what our cost per click is, or our estimated cost per click. So to get the search demand, we'd go to Google Keyword Planner, type in, for example, smart door lock, and then it will tell us how many monthly searches there are in a particular country. Let's assume that we're, looking to launch in the UK, and Google Keyword Planner tells us that there are 10,000 people every single month in the UK looking for smart door locks. In reality, it's probably more than that, so let me just adjust that slightly. Let's assume it's 20,000. Google Keyword Planner is also going to tell us what we could expect to pay to win that traffic. So let's assume that it tells us we need to spend $1 per click. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to Google Shopping, a bit like we did earlier, and we're going to have a look at the average selling price of smart door locks. Obviously, I'm based in Bali at the moment, which is why we're getting a weird currency, but let's assume that on average, people are selling smart door locks for $200. Then we go to Google Trends and it shows us that there is consistent demand year round. So we can simply put a green check across that, tick. Then what we can do is take these numbers and calculate what our total cost of goods sold could be so that we know how much profit you have left per sale. Let's assume of that 20,000 searches a month, you have a 2% conversion rate, which means for every 100 visitors on your website, you get 2 sales, which would mean 20,000 monthly visits would equate to 200 sales of smart door locks. Now, the average price that our competitors are selling these products for on the shopping network is $200. So 200 sales times $200, which is your revenue per sale, would be $40,000 in sales. Now, because we know our estimated cost per click is $1 and our conversion rate is 2%, which, like I said, means for every 100 visitors, we get 2 sales. That would mean for every 50 visitors, we get a sale. So that means for every 50 clicks we get from Google, we generate a conversion, which means our cost per acquisition, our cost per sale, is $50. Now, we'd need to reach out to a private agent to actually calculate what our product cost and shipping cost is. But as a ballpark, typically what you'll find is your cost of goods, so your product cost, shipping cost, and transaction fees, which is the fee that you pay the payment processor to accept the sale, should be no more than 25% of the product selling price. So if our selling price is $200, then your COGS should be no more than 25%, which would be $50. So now we know our cost of goods is $50 and our cost per conversion is $50, bringing our total cost of goods sold, which is product cost, shipping cost, transaction fees, and Google Ad spend to generate the sale, is $100. We deduct that from our product price that we're selling on our website, which is $200, which leaves you with $100 in profit per sale, which would mean our profit margin after all expenses related to generating the sale would be 50%. If we're able to generate 200 sales per month at a 2% conversion rate, generating $40,000 in revenue at a 50% profit margin, that would mean you make $20,000 profit per month. Times that $40,000 in revenue by 12 to assume what you would generate over a year, and that would be $480,000 in revenue and $240,000 in profit, just for that one product, which was the smart door lock. Now, obviously, these numbers are hypothetical. I'm not saying if you suddenly list smart door locks, you're going to get this result. But what I'm trying to show you is Google actually gives you all of this information for free on Keyword Planner, on the Google Shopping results, and within Google Trends that you can actually use to make hypothetical projections on what you might actually expect to pay on your cost of goods sold, so that you can actually calculate what your profit potential would be before you even list a product. This is exactly what I mean when I say you can validate products before you even bring them to market, which means you're able to launch products with an extremely high success rate. So what I recommend doing is just repeating this process and identifying 5 products that you want to bring to market. Why 5 products? Well, because typically the 80-20 rule applies. Applying this to e-commerce and dropshipping, it simply means that 20% of your products will generate 80% of your revenue. Don't ask me how or why it works, it just does. Now, if you can find 5 products like that and bring them to market, chances are you're going to find one that generates 80% of your revenue. But here's the trick, okay? You shouldn't just launch any random products. Forget about all these fashion stores, general dropshipping stores. What you need to do is launch a niche specific store. You may have heard the saying, the riches are in the niches. And there's truth to that. Like I mentioned to you earlier, my first store, I was selling baby products. Prams, pushchairs, car seats, travel system. I built a niche store. Why do you want to build a niche store? Well, because when you build a niche store, you become an authority, which means you position yourself as the logical solution for the category or subcategory of products that you've decided to sell. Why is that important? Well, first and foremost, it allows you to sell high-ticket products that are $100 plus, whilst also building trust, and most of all, building a brand, which is ultimately going to build a moat around your business. It's going to add a layer of protection. It's going to separate you from everyone else in the market. There's a big shift happening in e-commerce right now, and people are transitioning away from general dropshipping and into brand building, because you build authority, you build trust, you build a protective layer around your business that prevents any new copycats emerging and simply ripping your business, and also it provides you with high exit potential. Now, another reason why I recommend launching 5 products is, like I mentioned, one of those products will go on to generate 80% of your revenue. You can then double down on that particular product, start branding it, implementing custom packaging, improving your customer experience, building dedicated email flows that are built to nurture this particular customer avatar for this specific product. You can actually start to build a brand and separate yourself from the typical dropshipper. And this is exactly where most people go wrong with Google Ads dropshipping. They launch hundreds or even thousands of products, and they basically just become this online retailer. And whilst that can work for a typical dropshipping store, it's no way to actually build a brand, because those hundreds or even thousands of products that you've found online and you're dropshipping straight from China are the exact same products that anyone else can come along, list, and simply replicate your store. You have no way of actually differentiating yourself from anyone else in the market. However, if you build a strong core product library that focuses on core products within a specific niche, and you actually take the time to build a brand, then that is what's going to allow you to achieve the riches that can be found in the niches. You can then take your best-selling branded products and scale them horizontally and vertically. An example of horizontal scale is simply introducing these products to more markets. What I mean by markets is simply more countries. Google makes this very easy. You can simply copy your campaign from one market into another market and simply change the language if you need to. However, most of the time you'll find even just the English-speaking markets are more than enough to generate well over $1 million in revenue with just a few core products. Now, an example of vertical scale, by simply scaling the advertising budgets of each of the campaigns and introducing additional campaign types. The good thing about Google is it actually gives you search term data. It will show you the exact term that someone searched on Google that led to them actually generating a conversion on your store, which means you can then take the search terms that are converting on the shopping network that you know are proven to convert and create ads on the search network, which means you've then acquired more digital real estate, which is an example of horizontal scale. You can then take those campaigns, because you now have multiple of them, and scale them vertically with more ad spend. Then you can take the campaigns that are working well in one market and introduce them to another market, which is another country, and do the exact same thing again. Scale horizontally, vertically, and you can keep doing this every time you add a new product to your niche store. Once again, it's a repeatable process, something that you can literally get your virtual assistant doing. And in a moment, I'll show you exactly what my team org chart looks like. There's one question which I get often, which is how scalable is Google? Well, very scalable if you know how to leverage different campaign types and ultimately scale horizontally and vertically. But sure, if you're going to bring one product to market in one country, then yeah, eventually you're going to reach what's called TAM, which is total addressable market. So the way you get around this is with horizontal and vertical scale. Simply introduce more products that are relevant to your niche, to new markets, and build new campaigns. Now imagine you wanted to do this on Meta. Let's say you wanted to launch 5 products and you wanted to see which one is your winner. You'd easily spend anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for every product test that you do. So if you want to test 5 products, that could end up costing you $5,000. Even then, we need to take into consideration the iteration process, all of the different ads you need to create, even to keep that campaign alive and scalable, because ad creatives die out and pretty quickly as well, as you'll know if you've ever tried meta ads. Google's consistent, we don't even need to worry about that. Remember, all we need is a product title, an image, and a price point. Plus, let's go back to the 4-step product validation method. We're then validating products before we bring them to market by finding products that have high search demand, low competition, products that are evergreen, and have a high profit potential, which allows us to launch products with an incredibly high success rate. And the thing is, we don't even need to launch them ourselves. We just build the system that allows our virtual assistant to find, source, and list the products on our store and to Google Ads, and then we just generate sales via the shopping and search campaigns, all whilst making much more profit than you'd otherwise see on a meta ads dropshipping store. So then comes the question of how do we build the store? Well, I'm going to keep this very simple and I'm going to relate it back to right where we started. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't overcomplicate it. No fancy edits. Don't try and be this complete different person in the market. Just have a look at what your competitors in that same niche are doing. So for example, if you're selling smart door locks, have a look at your competitors' websites, see how they're designed, see what elements they have on their website, take the best performing elements from each of them and implement them onto your own store. Personally, I use the Shrine theme. It's what I use on my own store right now. It's also what I recommend to each of my students. So if you want to check that out, I'll drop a link in the video description. Truth be told, you can use any theme that you want. Just make sure the design is similar to what the rest of the market is doing in your particular niche. Once again, don't overcomplicate it. Don't spend days or even weeks tweaking that and changing that. It doesn't matter. Just build something that is good enough and matches the rest of the market, launch and start acquiring some data. You can always review, optimize, and improve as you go. The most important thing when launching a store is speed to implement, because when you're moving fast, you build momentum, and when you have momentum, it's very easy to keep pushing because you're constantly hitting milestones and new achievements. And that is the key to success. Keep it simple, stupid, maintain momentum, and be quick to iterate. Now I'm going to take a moment to explain my org chart to you so you can see how my team is structured. But before I do that, if you do need more help finding products and you're not sure where to start, then once more, see the link in the video description. You can join my free Google Ads dropshipping group. It's completely free to join, and in there I have training videos showing how I find winning validated products that are perfect for Google Ads stores. So if you do want to check that out, once again, see the link in the video description. It's completely free. So let me show you what my team structure looks like. You have me here. The first thing I did was started working with a private agent. This is my eyes and ears on the ground in China. They're essentially an extension of your business, and they helped me source my products in China to make sure I have the highest quality products, the fastest shipping lines, and the best possible prices. They then fulfill the products directly to the customer. So initially it looks something like this. Then of course, naturally, as you start generating sales, you start to get customer inquiries, and no business owner should really be dealing with that. So what I did was I hired a VA, which is a virtual assistant based in the Philippines. They then handled all of the customer support. I would oversee the VA, and they would maintain open communication between the private agent and the customer. I would of course oversee everything and step in as and when I need to. Then as revenue started to scale and volume increased, I hired an EA, which is an executive assistant. It's essentially someone with more e-commerce experience that is more senior in that role with a VA, and ideally someone with some operations experience. That EA then essentially took my place and oversaw the virtual assistant and the private agent, dealing with the types of things that I was doing previously. So they then maintain and oversee the day-to-day operations of the store. Sure, some things still get escalated to me, but very few. And what I've done is I've just created a Discord group for my EA, VA, and private agent, and they communicate openly inside those channels, which means I can then focus on the most important thing, which is what? Scaling revenue. Generating cash flow, which is all that you should be doing as a business owner, focusing on the high ROI tasks, the levers that you can pull that actually move your business forward, generating more cash flow and more profit. For me, that's identifying new products and new opportunities within the market and managing the Google advertising campaigns, which I typically do on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday. I spend 1 hour each day overseeing the campaigns, having a look at what some of my competitors are doing, and identifying whether or not there are any new products that I'd like to launch and test in different markets. Delegation and automation is not a choice, it is essential to growth. Yet most dropshippers will work 12-hour days with little to show for it. That's no life, and in truth, they just say that they're in the trenches as a coping mechanism. I've been in that position, and trust me, that's not freedom. You're just slowly torturing yourself with little to show for it. I hope this video has allowed you to see dropshipping for what it actually is, and that is a high cash flowing asset. The whole point of dropshipping is to build an asset that is detached from your time, that runs 24/7, 365, and generates you consistent cash flow and profits. And hopefully by watching this video, I've shown you exactly how that is actually possible. If you found this video useful and aspire to build a business that supports the lifestyle that you actually want, and you want my help getting there, then see the link in the video description for more information. I have a mentorship program called the Google Ads Ecom Academy, where I take people from complete beginners to building successful e-commerce dropshipping stores in as little as 90 days. Students are going from complete beginners to generating their first sale in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. That's product and market research, sourcing the products, building their website, launching their Google advertising campaigns, and generating their very first sale in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. We've built a proven system that you can follow to start building the life that you actually want. So if you want to learn more about the mentorship program and how it works, see the link in the video description. That's all for this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, smash subscribe, and drop a comment. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.